So I think there's two, so first of all, let's get it out the way. Death in Supernatural. It's great. It's very meaningful to me because I think there was something about that character and my personality that just went and worked, right? Come on in, guys. Don't be shy. Come on in. So there was something about that character, and it just, like with the script and everything, it was like a very happy balance. And obviously the folks that wrote the show agreed, and they kept developing that sort of thing about the guy. So you all know that character, and you all know me in that character. Another show that I've talked about a little bit is a rock and roll indie movie called Hardcore Logo. That's a real fun show for me because I grew up in England in the 60s and 70s, and I guess my means of expression and my way of identifying with a particular group that wasn't the mainstream was not through comic books, because in England growing up, we didn't really have comic books and comic heroes. Our comics were kind of comical and funny, but they weren't like magical and with special powers and stuff. So the thing that really I identified with and made me feel cool and made me feel like I belonged to a different group, it was music, right? Like a lot of English music coming out in the 60s and 70s. So for instance, in the 70s, in the early 70s, there was, that's my phone going. Sorry. There was a lot of glamorous, kind of like glam pop going on. And then we got David Bowie, who kind of knocked everybody sideways. Like we had all these big guys with long hair and big sideburns and stuff. And then you got like David Bowie going, like looking completely androgynous and different. That was like really cool. And then punk. And then punk rock. So, and that, I sort of found that a really interesting genre. Now, if I was a different generation, I'm sure I would be much more into rap, into contemporary music, like a whole different genre. But that's kind of my stuff. And so I was in a movie called Hardcore Logo, and I played like a punk guru. And he was like, kind of like Iggy Pop or something. And so I was able to kind of like be my inner rock geek. And kind of like walk, like, you know how we all have walks like we really want to walk? And I think sometimes when you're at a con and you become a particular character and you cosplay, you can do that, and you can go like walking like this, or I'm doing like my favorite character. I realized that I spent like half of like my teenage years walking like Mick Jagger. Because I like watching the Rolling Stones. So, okay. Sorry about your camera. You're going to miss half of me. But anyway, so in England, right? Everybody's like school uniform, tight pants, blazers, ties. Harry Potter. It's like Harry Potter, right? Oh, hello. How are you? You know, and all this stuff. And then it was extraordinary. Hi guys, come on in. Don't be shy. We're all good. And so I guess it was the late 60s, early 70s. Suddenly there was this guy singing music, and he had jeans, he had sneakers on, and he kind of walked his hips like this, and it's like, wow, guys don't walk like that. Like, that's so cool. And I remember that being a huge influence, and I realized that actually when I was trying to be cool, like when I was walking down the street, I was doing a Mick Jagger and kind of going. I have brothers, right? And I know my brothers would sometimes look at me and say, stop being cool, shut up, stop it. But anyway, so I'm just revealing my inner geek here. So this is a long-winded explanation, but so two characters, Death, and I think those two characters, like the rock and roll punk guy and Death, are sort of like, they're aspects of me. And I think as an actor, it's no different than you guys. Like the stuff that you watch, you go into universes that are kind of aspects of you, or ideas or characters that you identify with. And I think as an actor, you get your most satisfaction for playing characters that seem to be an extension of you or something that's natural. So those are, I'd say somewhere between those two. And then I don't know if you guys are familiar with my career, but I've done loads of stuff over the years. Like I've been working for 40 years, which sometimes I have to pinch myself and go, wow, yeah, I've been doing this for 40 years. One day I'll get a real job. And I still panic, you know. Oh, okay. But I do panic. I kind of go, well, I don't know what's coming next. Like, but then I look at, you know, the next generation, and everybody's kind of on a gig economy, right? Everybody is going, well, I'm not employed by this corporation. I don't have a pension plan. It's like the whole world is actually starting to work in the same way that I'm used to working. So nobody's really that secure. All right.
So you brought up Hardcore Logo, which
Yes.
is a fantastic movie, but it's also a very Canadian movie, and you've been in, over the last, you said, 40 years, been in a lot of really well-regarded, like, Canadian films. How did a boy from Oxford end up in Toronto?
Aha. So I grew up in Oxford. I always wanted, like, from an early age, I joined youth clubs. I put on plays, acting. I had brothers that were doing theater stuff as well. I followed in their footsteps. I copied. I had an older brother that used to build sets and scenery. I went to the same youth club that put on plays. And I thought, I love acting. I love being part of something that has a deadline and that you all work together, and at the end of it you go, wow, that was really cool. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, but it doesn't matter. It's the actual event that's the fun of it. And so I thought, right, I'm going to do acting for as long as it's fun for me, because I love it and I want to do it all my life. But I realized at the time that, you know, it's not likely that I'll make a career of being an actor. And so I made a point of going to university and studying English and drama, thinking that, well, you know what, I'm going to be an actor for a year and then I'm going to end up being a teacher, which is not a bad thing at all, but I thought it's a fallback. And I was just lucky. I just kept going, and what happened was I did some gigs in England. I did a bunch of shows in small theaters, touring shows. Then I joined a theater company that was kind of weird and avant-garde and did this expressionistic, imagistic shows that toured internationally. And they were very, like, you didn't need to speak English, for instance, to really understand what was going on, because they were very visual. They were like a dance piece almost. And we came on tour. We toured Chicago, New York, Toronto. And I arrived in Toronto and loved Toronto. And I met my wife. Oh, isn't that? And we've been married for 35 years. Oh, yeah. That's she'll hate me for saying, and I'm recorded for this, because my wife always gets very embarrassed and says, don't mention me. You know, there's always this thing where, you know, with Academy Awards and things, people get up and they thank their agent and they thank their partner that's been with them through thick and thin, you know. And she said, if you ever do that, I'm divorcing you. So I don't know, like, if I'm in trouble if I get nominated for an Oscar and I have to get up there. I don't know what I'm going to do. And as you can tell, I'm a ham, because, so here we are. You're very kindly interviewing me, and you can see my theater training here. Right away, I disrupt the place here. I know where most of the people in the room are, so I'm kind of focusing and looking at them. I haven't really looked at you at all, but I do apologize.
I'll be all right. I think I'll be fine.
But so you can tell, and going back to it, sort of explaining, this is more of an apology for my behavior, but going back to the theater company I was with, I was saying it was a very imagistic, like dance theater and stuff. You can tell that I'm a physical guy. Like, I don't just, death was a challenge for me to be able to stand there and go, yes, Dean. You know, like that in itself is a big act for me to keep my body still. But I am a sort of guy that, like, I doesn't just talk to you, but I kind of like use my hands and things. So yes, that's why I guess I like being an actor is that I can channel that enjoyment of, like, it's a mask. It's like I'll put the mask on of a character, and I don't see it just as like playing a role, but I see it as sort of like performing a way of walking, of talking, of dressing. It's a whole different. It's a whole universe. It's not unlike cosplaying, right? I think I've never cosplayed, but I think it's the same kind of idea. Yeah.
You mentioned seeing the first Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Would you be game to be the next Doctor Who?
I sure would, except I think she is
I mean,
after her. Yeah. Now I got to admit I've kind of lost. I just don't know much about Doctor Who recently. I think Christopher Eccleston was one of the last ones because I sort of know him and I know his work. And I've lost contact over the years. Yeah, I sure would. I think it's a fascinating series. And it's gone up and down over the years, and it's been less relevant, more relevant. It's had to reinvent itself. But it's more a part of everybody's lives, so it's an important thing. And I have to say, I'm very proud. There was a whole bunch of Supernatural fans that created a huge online petition for me to be the new Doctor. And this was way back. Now which one is it? The one that we've just had before?
Peter Capaldi.
Peter Capaldi. So Peter Capaldi is like kind of like me, right? Same age, same demographic, old white guy. And I'm happy to say that we're diversifying more. And this is an honest thing. You know, old white guys, we see lots of old white guys and dramas about old white guys. I'm happy to say that things are shifting and changing slowly, but they are changing. And I think it's really cool that the new aspect of death is so different. It's an attractive black woman. And like that to me is very exciting and very much a sign of progress and a sign that we are starting to mix it up. But back then, I was considered to be like a fan favorite for Doctor Who. So that's it. Yeah. Yep.
Who was your favorite person to work with on Supernatural?
Oh, I don't know if I have a favorite, and I certainly don't have like, they're all pretty good, right? Like they're fun to work with. And I did most of my work with Jensen. So I guess I'd have to say Jensen, but it's not because I didn't get on with Jared or with Misha. They're the other two guys that I really work with. But I just enjoyed working with him. He's just so easy. And I've said this the last couple of panels that we've had, is that people forget, like, he's a kind of a star. He's like a rock star, right? Everybody really likes him, unless you really like Sam. But you know, everybody kind of goes. And he suffers a bit in the same way that an actor like Brad Pitt or like somebody that's considered to be iconic and like really cool, they suffer from them just being considered to be physical, but actually they're good actors. Like Brad Pitt's a good actor. Jensen is a good actor. And in certainly in my scenes, he's really good. He always, if you watch him, he always works. He always listens. Because a lot of actors don't listen. Like they just come in, they got their lines in their head, and it's like being nervous in a conversation. You know when you're really nervous and you kind of got a lot of things to say, but you're so anxious you don't really listen to the other person, and it sort of spurts out. Well, you find that a little bit with a lot of actors. They come in and they're all prepared, and they've got their thing, and they're only focusing on what they're doing. And especially if you're the lead in a show, other actors start to be less and less important. It's more about you, and it's more about your brand and what the show's like. I got to say that my experience with those guys, and especially my experience with Jensen in the scenes that I did, is that he's there with you, and he's listening, he's talking, he's giving suggestions, and he's alive. He's open to the moment, and that's a very important thing, and that's very cool. Sir?
Did Jensen and Jared play pranks on you?
No, they didn't. They're scared. No, I don't know. I think, actually, I think what you have to remember too is that I only, like, my career on Supernatural, it's not like, it's significant, but it's not huge. I'm only in there occasionally. And all the scenes that I'm in, they're all very technical. They're all, like, you've got food, you've got, like, weird lighting effects, you've got somebody there that is there and then isn't there, and the room shakes and stuff. So when you got, like, technical scenes, you've got to be very careful. You've got to do them well, and you've got to be consistent in every take. You can't mess around. And so there's no room to mess around with them. And so they've tended not to do that in my scenes. There's too much else going on. I think they can afford to relax on some of the other scenes that are more straightforward, and they do stuff to keep themselves on board and lively. But no, I haven't personally had any pranks, thank goodness. Because I wouldn't know what to do. I really wouldn't know what to do. Like, what am I going to do? How dare you? Don't, you know, or something. Like, what would I do? The problem is I would probably laugh. And that's the honest truth. And I would probably giggle all the way through the next take and then the next take. And so it would be terrible. So I'm glad they didn't, anyway. Sir, at the back. Yeah. I'd love to, right? So I've had a couple of experiences like that. I mean, so for instance, in Supernatural, I could always come back as Death, right? Because it's written in such a way that, yeah, sure, I got killed, and then Billy came along, and then now Billy has sort of gone, and we don't know what's going to happen, and then maybe they'll write Death back. Honestly, I don't know. So, and I'd be thrilled, because it's sort of, it's exciting for me because it means they liked it, and it means that the fans like it, so I'd go back, and then I would try and make it a little bit different the next time. I'd try and take it a bit further. But I had a funny experience like that. So I was on a show called Nikita. Do any of you guys know Nikita? You know Nikita? Now, there were two. There was one that shot in the 90s, and there's one more recently. I was in the original one in the 90s. You're still familiar with that one? Right? And I played this guy, and it was a bit like, you know, I said I like that rock and roll guy, that Bucky Haight role. So it was kind of the same kind of part of me that is that rock and roll guy. So I was like this very cool computer guy that was going to blow up the world. I was doing some weird thing, and I had a sidekick, and between us we were going to infect the whole world with some terrible virus. Honestly, I can't remember what it was. But it ended, the episode ended, so I was the baddie of the week, and the episode ends with the heroes coming into the building, and it's and this stuff, and then I run away down the corridor, and then there's bombs and things thrown, and then the whole building blows up, and that's it, right? And that was the end of the episode. And so that's quite the way to go as a hero. So next season, I get a phone call saying, could you come back as that character? And I go, but I've been killed. And they said, yeah, but the building was blown up. You weren't necessarily blown up. You could have been in the back room or something. So they came up with their own logic why I wasn't killed. And I went, sure, you know, because I enjoyed playing that character. And obviously they'd got response from the fans that they liked that episode. And they were just trying to find a way to bring that character back. And actually, I was hoping that he was going to come back and, you know, and become more of a regular. And so for an actor like me, I'm going, well, that's great. If I start to be a regular on a show, it's much more interesting, because then they're focusing on my character and developing my character and making it more complicated, right? Now, are you okay if I just keep going here? Yeah. Okay, I've got one more story about this. So I was in a completely different genre show. It's called, what's it called? Oh, dear. Heartland. Any of you guys familiar with Heartland? It's a Canadian show. It's shot in Alberta, Canada, and it's about a horse farm. And it's a kind of primetime family show. And it's about horses, and it's the drama of, you know, the girl falls in love with the stable boy, and it's their relationship, and it's horses getting injured, and it's very wholesome. It's good family entertainment, right? So they wanted this sort of like creepy. They did a Halloween episode. Guess who they wanted as the as the guy, Mr. Hanley, the neighbor, the creepy guy on the neighboring ranch that had horses that didn't look after his horses properly, and it was this whole episode, right? And they did it like a spooky Halloween show, and the kids in the local village went onto the ranch and were trying to see who this creepy guy was. And it turns out that he isn't that creepy. He's not very well, and his horses are sick and stuff. So it's kind of sad. Anyway, it was a nice episode, and then next season, they said, would you come back? And we're going to introduce your sister into this next episode. And I'm thinking, great. This has gone from just a one-off to a regular job. Because don't forget, like as an actor like myself, I'm happy for work, right? I mean, I try to be picky, but I'm also happy to have offers coming in. So I'm thinking, great, sister, I'm established now. I'm on the ranch next door to the heroes. So maybe I'm starting to be a major character here, and I'll start to do interesting stuff. So we did that episode, and then I didn't hear anything. Nothing. And I'm not really in a position to go, hey, what are you doing about my character? You know, and I just have to wait and see. And then 2 years pass, and Sunday night, prime time, and I know the show's on. So I said to my daughter, let's turn the TV on, and we'll watch it, see what's going on the show, because we haven't seen it for a while. And I swear, I turn the TV on, and it cuts to Amber, who is the lead, and it's a close-up of her face, and she's saying, I'm so sad about what happened to Mr. Hanley. And Mr. Hanley is me. And then the next shot is an ambulance going down the road. And that's me in the ambulance. And like Mr. Hanley had died of a heart attack. So they'd figured out, I guess at one point they'd figured that they were going to develop my character. And then somebody else said, no. And then I found out what happened is that then, like, the best friends of the heroes moved into my barn, or my ranch, and they became the main characters, like the main subsidiary characters to the show. So that was how they got rid of me. Damn, it's not fair, is it? Yes?
So you were close to reaping Sam in season 9, and potentially sending me away in season 10.
10, yeah.
When, God forbid that they do, or Chuck forbid,
Yeah.
where would you have more or less directed Sam and Dean? Heaven, hell, or into the void?
Oh, wow. That's a true fan question, right? Yeah, and it stumps me every time because, you know, your knowledge is vast. My knowledge, like this, right? So, but I can give you a jokey answer, and that is, I think I would confine him to, like, a fast food restaurant, and I would make him eat junk food, like, nonstop. Like, it would be some sort of void or vortex or something. But no, seriously, I don't know. I think that what's established in the show is that there's a rapport between Death and both boys, particularly with Dean. And so I think it would be it would be the one that was the kindest, because I don't think he doesn't hate them, and he doesn't want anything bad to happen to them, but bad stuff keeps happening. And I think that's part of the fun of the show, too, is that things screw up, life screws up, even though you don't mean it to, which is actually the basis of the episode Incident in Samara. Is it where I give the ring? Thank you. Appointment at Samara, where Death gives him the ring. It's kind of like life's complicated, and you have to, sometimes the right decisions are not the easiest decisions to make. Sir?
So we know that other characters on the show have had a lot of anonymity, like Nick, the Gus with the body, right? Have you
when you say, well, I'm showing my ignorance here. When you say fan immunity, do you mean like fans that are petitioning and saying, don't you dare get rid of this character? Is that what you mean? Come on, guys! What are you doing? Right. I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know. I'm not as plugged in. I tweet, you know, and then my daughter would say, Dad, you press that button and that button. I mean, I do social media, but it's not my thing. And so I'm not really aware too much of all the other stuff, all the culture and the subcultures. And I know there's negative and positive stuff too. You know, there's some stuff that's probably better not to know about. But no, I don't really know. And I'm not aware that death has that sort of following that would do that. I'm happy if you do. The only other thing is, I know death is an interesting topic, and I can tell you that there's a book coming out in a month, maybe 2 months, and it's called The Subject of Death in Supernatural. It's an academic journal, and it's written by about 12 different professors, and it's about the theme of death. And so it's like about what death means, it's about certain episodes, and I'm writing the foreword for it. So I mean, that's kind of cool. I think that there is, obviously, death is present in the form of reapers and in the form of people dying and coming back all the way through. Yep.
Do you keep any relics, like your ring or anything from the show?
I'm not really,
Cane?
no, not really. And no, and I'm not really allowed to either. Like in terms of wardrobe and props and stuff. Don't forget, again, I'm a guest artist, and it's a little bit different when you're a guest actor than you are when you're there day in, day out, and you know everybody, and you know the wardrobe mistress, and you say, hey, do you mind if I just take this glove home tonight? You know, and they go, sure, just take it. It's a little bit different for me because I'm just going in, and I see people for a week and then go away again. So no, I don't really. I have a lot of really nice gifts from fans. Like I've got a couple of gifts of rings and of cards and pictures, and I've had some stuff today and yesterday that have been given me. I value those, I treasure those, but in terms of actual prop stuff, no. Yeah, just seeing if I've got anyone. Sir?
Your body of work is remarkably extensive. And between theater, movie, film, television, is there a medium that you prefer doing?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that. And a lot of actors kind of go, oh, I just can't wait to get back to the stage because that's where it all begins. That is what I'm most used to. But I love theater, as you can see. Like I like talking to people and I like communicating. But I really like film and TV too. They've all got different challenges, and it's a little bit like being an athlete and using different muscles. And I know Ben Kingsley described it. He said it's a little bit like theater is like being a marathon runner, and film and television is like being a sprinter. And it's true. It's like you have to train, but you have to sort of specialize in different ways. You have to build your body and your muscles in different ways, and different arcs in a way. And I like doing that. I like being used to sprinting and then doing the longer distance, and then, you know, doing the different stuff, flexing my muscles. And the newest one that I'm getting used to, which is really new for me, is games. I'm doing like mocap and voices for games, and that's a whole new territory for me. That's even more different than both of them, you know, because when you got the suit on and you do the mocap, and you're in a room that's just lit, and then they're taking your measurements and you're moving around. It's just extremely odd. Like, you have to get used to it. So, but I'm enjoying it.
How important is character? Your character choices, like playing what you do?
How what?
How important is the character you choose for whether you're doing film or theater or television? Does that play a part as well?
Yeah, Yeah, it does, and it affects the style too. Like, I mean, I could be playing, like generally in theater you're bigger, right? You know, you have to, like if I'm in this room, I have to kind of be talking to the person that's farthest away from me, so I have to be communicating. So the characters that you play and the choices that you make in theater tend to be bigger. But contrary to that, like if I played a character that in film or television that needed that size, I'd do it. Like I'd be big and like, you know, sometimes, I mean, who's it, the Joker in Batman? Yeah, Heath Ledger. Like that's big. That's a big performance. It's fantastic though, because it's grounded, right? Like, so he's kind of almost acting like he's in the theater, but he's actually on screen. But he's like, it's great because he's there. It's like very true, and that as long as it's true, it doesn't matter. Yep.
Slings and arrows.
Oh, Slings and Arrows. Wow, you've seen a lot of different stuff. That's amazing.
Slings and arrows.
Slings and Arrows is a show that was in the 90s, and it was a kind of a joke about being in a theater festival. And surprisingly, I played an undertaker. And with a brother, and the funny thing was it was like our company was two brothers, and the guy they chose for my brother was like 6'6" and 350 pounds, and so like it was like the big guy and the skinny guy, and anyway, yeah, that was a fun show.
Supposed to do the head, right? The skull.
Yeah, it was that we got the head. And somebody had died, and we were supposed to. All these roles I get, I don't know, and it was kind of funny too. It was like, anyway, yeah. Sir. Sorry, it's just the acoustics. Oh, okay. The deciding factor for me choosing death. Well, honestly, I'm not being glib, but you know, a lot of people ask that about an actor like myself, and part of the reason is that you get the job. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember, who was it? It was Ving Rhames or somebody said that, like in an interview, and kind of went, well, you know, we're self-employed, and we get an offer, and we take it. As long as it doesn't stink, and as long as you don't look at it and go, I'm saying stuff in there that that offends me or bothers me, you're pretty likely to, unless it contradicts with another show and conflicts, and then you have to make a choice. But the story, the reality of getting the role in Supernatural is, I actually said this yesterday, so excuse me if I repeat myself, but I auditioned, I'd never heard of Supernatural. This is like in season 4, and my agent said, you're supposed to put yourself on tape for a show called Supernatural, and it was for the part of Pestilence. And I put myself out, like I stand in front of a camera like this, I did a scene, and then it got sent away to Vancouver where they shoot, and then I didn't think anything about it. And then like 2 years later, my agent phoned me and said, you got a job on that show called Supernatural. And I went, Supernatural? Oh my God, that was ages ago that I recorded myself. And so I said, Pestilence. She said, no, Death. You're playing Death. So I think what happened was that back in season 4, they were thinking about the 4 horsemen, and they basically only had a certain amount of script, like, you know, only for Pestilence, maybe. That was the most developed character at that time. So they put those out there, and then they got everybody to do readings and submit their auditions, and then they made choices from there. So it was kind of weird that I got offered the job, but I didn't think that I was going to get offered Death, you know. So, but you know, it was a great script. So I would have no hesitation in saying yes. Yes.
Do you believe in supernatural ghosts or anything?
Well, I'm as superstitious as anybody, right? But I don't. It's a hard one. I don't know. No and yes. That would be my answer. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so why would you picture as death? Like, why would you see him as
Oh, I don't honestly know what death is, but in an embodiment of death, right? So what I like about the way that my character's written is that he's actually full of life. And that's what I like. Because I think death's related to life. I don't think it's necessarily a completely depressing thing. I think it's hard, and I think we all have to deal with it, and it's not easy, but it's not just this terrible thing that we have to kind of push away and be terrified about. And I like the way that it's written on Supernatural, because he's like, you don't run screaming from him. You kind of go, uh-oh, what's going on? But when you meet him, you kind of know that he's doing a job, and that he's taking it seriously, and he's doing something that's responsible. So I like that. I like that aspect to death, and I think that's true generally in terms of rebirth and in terms of moving on. And I think it's very cool that death dies, and death reappears in a completely different form, right? So that you don't just kind of go, oh my God, it's that spooky guy. It's like a whole different bunch of aspects. And I think the way it was written with the food, the junk food, makes him more sort of like, he likes earthly things, and he likes the things that will make you live. It's food, right? So I think it's complicated. Sir? Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I do a little bit. I do, but at the same time, if you're going to do film and TV, you know, I'm who I am. I look who I am. I got these cheekbones. I got a particular way of speaking. You kind of have to embrace it. And I've got friends who are powerful, big guys who tend to play cops and tend to play like the stereotype, like their own stereotypes, right? So the way I get around it is to try and play those characters, but for real, and give them something that makes them true, not just a type. So, you know, and I think Death is a good example, because he's more than just like the spooky guy with a scythe, right? There's more to him than that. And that's the only way I can get around it. I can't get around who I am. And in fact, as an actor, I have to embrace who I am and kind of go, yeah, that's what you get, right? I do struggle with being typecast. The big thing is, the problem for a guy like me is more, I wish that they would have faith in having somebody that's a bit off, like a bit unusual. I wish that we could have a series with somebody like myself, male, female, whatever, as the lead, rather than as the quirky buddy or friend, or like, or you know what I mean? Like for me, that's kind of more what I wish for, right? Yep. Yes, I have. Kind of cool. Do you like it? There's another one coming up, right? Yeah, and it's coming out like at the end of the month or something. It's coming out quite soon. Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're pretty amazing. They're pretty dynamic. It's the two sisters, right? Yeah. Yeah, I look forward to seeing it. I know that it's going to be more elaborate this time, and there's a lot more people involved. So, and I think what kind of following? This is just for anybody that doesn't know. This is a sort of, it's two sisters that live in Vegas that do a kind of a spoof of Supernatural. Yeah, yeah. And they got a huge following, too. So they've almost become their own offshoot of the show. So I'm looking forward to seeing it, too. Yep. No, I don't have, like, I don't kind of sit there and wonder, you know? I don't think, oh, if only, but I think something that I'd like to do would be, I love genre. It's my medium, really, because I'm kind of a bit larger than life, so I love that. I think it would be challenging and it would be fun to do one of those real lifelike shows, you know, where you're almost watching reality, like it's super real feeling, grainy, gritty. I think that would be fun. I think it would be fun for me to be cast in something like that, where it was like, and also, like I'm saying before, maybe as a character that isn't just the kooky guy that comes in and affects the story, but maybe one of the guys on a story arc. I think that would be fun. Oh, we getting close?
Oh, we're gonna go. We can probably do a couple more.
Yeah.
I was going to say two things. One, I would love to see if Sam and Dean actually like wind up dying or God winds up dying. I would love to see your death come back and personally be the one that ends them.
Well, thank you. Okay. I think I'd have a lot of people that would be very upset with me if I did anything to do with Sam and Dean's death. I think I'd have to like walk around like this, you know, like you're the guy, and I'd be like running around. Okay.
Secondly, not counting Sam, Dean, or Death, who's your favorite character? Like, who's your favorite side character that's in there?
That's a hard one. I like Sheriff Jody Mills. Yeah, I think she's very cool, and she kicks ass. I think she's great, and Kim in person. Like I've done a few cons with her, and I like her spirit. I like her whole thing, you know. And I think she's very important to a lot of people. So I'll say Kim Rhodes, Sheriff.
So one thing I was thinking, since we're at Comic-Con, to ask.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are fans, and then there are fans.
Right.
Can you pinpoint that moment that it dawned on you that after you had appeared on Supernatural that this was something else entirely compared to what you had done previously?
Well, there was a moment when I was on the second show, where the one when I have the hamburger, and what's that? What's the show there where and Bobby's in it, isn't he? And I can't even remember the name of the episode. There you go. It shows my ignorance. But it was the second episode that I was in, Supernatural. And the AD took me aside and he said, "Hey, it's nice to see you again. That last show was really good." He said, "So you're doing a second episode?" And I went, "Yeah, that's great, isn't it?" He said, "So you might be doing cons." And he looked at me like that. And I kind of went, "Cons? What's he talking about?" And I carried on, right? But he knew the culture of Supernatural, and he knew that the fandom would make it such that it would put my character out there as somebody that would appear in cons. And so I always look back to that moment and go, yeah, he was right.
He knew it was coming.
He knew what was coming because he's witnessed it with the other guys too. He was an AD right from the beginning of the show, and he's seen it grow. And I think he's witnessed cons going from something that was a bit of a pain in the ass for the producers of Supernatural. It's like, but we're filming. Do we have to let these guys go to a con now? You know, right at the beginning, to the point now where they go, the cons are the big thing. Like they are part of the culture of Supernatural, and they actually are as important as the shows themselves. And I mean, they've been spoofed in the shows too, you know. So I think I put that down to my moment.
All right, we probably have time for one more.
Do you ever take interest in like movies and shows that you actually watch? For example, after Dean cast Lauren in Man of Steel, did you ever go to the theater and watch and say, "Oh, so that's how that dumpster fire turned out"?
Yeah, I do, but it tends to be professional. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you work on a show, it's hard to be a fan. Or that's my take on it. And again, it comes back to that thing that I was telling you about me coming in, and I'll do a show, and I'll do my best, and I'll be a primary color for the brand or whatever that thing is. And sometimes it's important to go in without any preconceived ideas. Sometimes if you go in as a fan, you kind of go, right, I can't wait to meet that character and I know what they're going to bring to me. Sometimes it's good to knock it off kilter a bit. So if you don't have a big knowledge, but you go into a show and you just play the scene, you play it straight, you play what you think is the right thing, sometimes it has a better effect. And once you've done it, it's kind of hard to become a fan because it's like you've seen behind the magic. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of people say that to me about Orphan Black too. I've seen Orphan Black. I know Tatiana. It's a magical show. It's fantastic. But I kind of know the story behind the magic, so it's hard not to It's hard to sort of geek out on it in a way. So I can't think of any show that I'm in that I really do that. But that doesn't stop me being totally impressed and totally into the stuff that I do. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't kind of go in as a cynic, but no, I try to keep very professional. All right.
That's about it. We've done it. You guys, this was the unofficial end of O-Comic-Con for 2018.
Oh, wow.
We have reached
Give
the end.
yourselves a applause.